Hello, it is now the 17th, also heute ist der 17. This is bilingual and this is proof. It is important because this channel has developed into something that was done in the old days by private detectives or the Three Investigators, a novel, a series for children and youth, but it was rather adult stuff. Also hier geht es um eine Sache, die so untersucht wird, wie das früher wohl eher, ich muss mal den Bildschirm gerade rücken, Privatdetektive gemacht haben. Ungefähr so wie bei den drei Fragezeichen, also im Englischen heißt das The Three Investigators. Those are not exact translations, but the idea, the picture I express by that is mostly the same. Also es ist ungefähr dasselbe, was ich auf Englisch und Deutsch sage, aber es ist keine genaue Übersetzung. Es gibt das Bild wieder, was ich dazu im Kopf habe. And I wanted to give you a thing where I myself was trying a little bit resistance. Also ich wollte mal etwas erzählen, wo ich selbst in der Schule etwas Widerstand geübt hatte. I always thought my father, because he told me so much, here she is a bit older, she was the mother, the older. She had told me about him so much, and those are we two. And he was her soulmate. They had met the first time when my mother had been 15 years old, and he was very sportive, so she did not know he was much more of age, maybe even far above 30 at that time. Maybe even 30 years older. Also meine Mutter, als sie, also hier ist sie, als sie den Vater kennengelernt hatte, da war sie 15 und er war sehr sportlich, er war auch auf den Schrank geklettert, wo sie sich versteckt hatten, um zu ermitteln. Er war vielleicht, also er war weit über 30, vielleicht schon 45. Deswegen hatte ich mir so behalten, so ungefähr 30 Jahre Altersunterschied könnten das sein. They got to know each other when there was a problem in the ambassador or the ministers corps. Also sie hatten sich kennengelernt, als es da ein Problem gab in dem Diplomaten- oder Ministerkreis, also Reichsministerkreis. And there was data going out without permission. Also waren da Daten ohne Erlaubnis nach draußen gekommen. And she was privately of interest, having interest to look for it. Und meine Mutter hatte selbst Privatinteresse, das mal zu untersuchen. And she knew him from something else I can't remember right now. So I knew my mother was somehow related to the leaders from of old, around 1900. Also meine Mutter war irgendwie mit der deutschen Anführer, also des Reiches, bekannt. She answered very precise what she wanted to say. Also meine Mutter hat immer sehr genau geantwortet, was sie sagen wollte. I tried to find out and I was stopped and I had to look for other ways to get the desired information. Also ich wollte da was rausbekommen, dann wurde ich gestoppt und da musste ich irgendwie das anders versuchen herauszubekommen. I understood she had been in China. And there in China she had been with a family to give her an education. Also sie war auch mal in China und da war sie mit einer Familie, um eine Erziehung zu bekommen. So I understood. This could have been a good standing family, also könnte gut bürgerlich eine Familie gewesen sein, but there were secrets and that could have to do with a religion, also waren irgendwie Geheimnisse, das könnte mit Religion zu tun haben, because of those you don't tell and you better don't ask, und über diese alten Sünden soll man da besser nicht fragen, also das unterlässt man gefälligst. And I found out, people of old, they all were believers. Ich habe dann herumgefragt und habe herausgefunden, früher, also so in der alten Zeit, so um 1900 muss das gewesen sein, hatten alle an Gott geglaubt. There was not the question if there had been the need for religion. It was rather a discussion about the differences. Also damals gab es nicht die Frage, ob man eine Religion haben sollte, sondern es ging um die Unterschiede. And there was the saying, if you don't believe, you are like the cattle, or like. So those were a little bit outcast, because they had no religion. The Indians of the East, they were of a different religion. Also die Indianer des Ostens, aus dem Stamm, das waren natürlich keine Indianer, ich nenne sie nur so, those had no religion, or at least another, not recognized religion. Also das war so im Stammeswesen des Ostens, hatten sie nicht die Religion, die überhaupt anerkannt war. Oder wenn man eben nicht an Gott glaubt, dann ist man wie das Vieh im Stall. Also es gab so, there were sayings, Redewendungen gab es. And I was a novel reader of historic tellings. We had many books at home, and so I got to know history over the centuries. Also wir hatten ja, oder ich hatte persönlich viele Geschichtsbücher gelesen, also Romane meistens, aber nicht nur. Also eigentlich nur Romane, weil so Fakten, so langweilige Fakten, das war schon irgendwie verkleidet. Und so habe ich die Jahrhunderte kennengelernt, and when being on a walk, I could ask the two mothers about history. And this is the other mother, a little bit younger. She was teaching music in German. Sie hatte den Leuten die Flötentöne beigebracht. She was a strict teacher. And I can now very well understand they could have been leaders, or in their blood could be leading capability. Also ich kann mir jetzt natürlich gut vorstellen, dass da durchaus Anführerkapazität im Blut auch ist. But I understood times had changed, so I had read about the old tribe system with Widukind and Charlemagne. Also es gab damals ja diesen Karl den Großen bei den alten Germanen, und dann the Romans were coming in, and then there was, I don't know, from Ireland, or where had he come, a missionary, and this was in the first centuries. Also darüber habe ich dann schon gewusst, so auf Spaziergängen über Karl den Großen und Widukind. Near this location there is a remembrance by very old artifacts. Also hier sind ganz alte, or very old historical culture pieces. Also alte Speerspitzen und sowas Ähnliches findet man hier von den Schlachten. Those are of the battle between Romans and tribes soldiers, also zwischen den Stammeskriegern, den Römern. Also da hat es gekracht. Und da sind also da auch noch so alte Erinnerungen und auch wenige Grundmauern, very few foundations. They had a different system of protection. The castles, those came later in place. Also die Burgen, yes, they had castles as well, but not in the earliest time, where you can find some pieces, historical evidence. There had been rather a protection system for camps. Also ganz früher, da war es ein Schutzsystem für Lager. And it had to do, of course, with the tectonic environment. Das hat natürlich auch mit der Tektonik hier zu tun. There are not many mountains, rather wetlands and so on. But here is the border between the lowlands and then the hill country. Also hier ist dann ungefähr die Grenze zwischen Flachland und Hügelland. But what I wanted to tell you about is that I wanted to resist a little bit, and I was not enjoying it very much, that the belief of my father had been accused. Also hier ist dann das, was ich mal aufgeschrieben hatte. This I had put into writing. I do not want to go into it very much, but that was the belief that had developed, and it was attacked by the system in Germany, and I was doing a little defense. I was developing my own belief system, but understood there had been some problematic situation. We still have the freedom to believe. It is right, I must put those away, right. We have the freedom. It's according to the basic laws, GG, the Grundgesetz are basic laws. But that freedom, it was attacked by so-called science. Science was said, was contradicting. Also es wurde gesagt, dass die Wissenschaft das widersprechen, also dem widersprechen würde, dem Glauben an Gott. It is not about the belief system. I was not at school, I was little, not too little, maybe at that age between. I was hearing jokes and so on about the belief in itself. And so I understood there was now rather an opposition to that what gave my father his strength. And this is not to question, because it is his writing, and that was his writing after he had been in the police force. I found that in the Bible of my mother, and this is a little bit smaller, I enlarged it, and there his handwriting had changed a little bit. The first were the letters he had to put into the formulas, into the forms. Also in die Formulare musste er eintragen, und das mit großen Buchstaben, und das, weil er viel eingetragen hatte als ein Polizist. He had to work as a policeman, and those tribes chiefs, they rather wanted to be near the people. Also diese Stammeschefs, Anführer, die wollten dem Volk eben gerade nahe sein. It was for them rather the opposite. If they had been built a house, and the saying was, there had been a house for Karl, they were not living there, they had that for representative purposes. Also sie hatten, wenn sie ein Haus hatten, die Anführer, dann hatten sie das für repräsentative Sachen, aber sie haben da nicht wirklich gewohnt. They rather wanted to live among the people. Therefore he had chosen a simple Schutzmann, a simple policeman. Deswegen hatte, oder I don't know if he had chosen that or if that was open for him. I rather don't know. Das weiß ich eher nicht. Aber er hatte eben den Schutzmann. That was for me, for long, a stumbling stone. And people even joked about it. He was a Schutzmann. How then could he resist the forces of the Gestapo, SS and others? And of his own men, who were then ordered to have to look at him, that he is not doing anything. Also als er dann, das muss gewesen sein, als Rommel auch stillgelegt wurde, dann hat auch das eigene System ihn beobachtet. Und es war auch dann natürlich die geheime Staatspolizei und ich weiß nicht, ob die Militäreinheit da auch, die SS, das weiß ich jetzt nicht. Aber das war schon eine Macht, also das ist wirklich so gewesen. Wie hat er dann überhaupt Widerstand leisten können? And it was very much dangerous. So he could not have done it without the knowing he is putting his life at risk and also the life of his wife. And he really was the love of his youth. They had met and they were good co-workers, but there was the difference that I have now calculated. Also das war wirklich die Jugendliebe. Sie durften dann nicht zueinander kommen. Warum? Das habe ich jetzt noch fast noch nicht hundertprozentig, aber I have not it 100%, but I'm thinking about it that the logical arguments come together. I must resolve this by conclusions. Also ich muss das durch Schlussfolgerungen and through search for evidence through the internet, and then thinking about all those stories I heard and those questions I was not answered. Those are even more important. Also die Fragen, die nicht beantwortet wurden, die sind eher noch wichtiger. Die sind eher noch wichtiger. Because I now understand it was different in the tribe system. It was different in the nobility, aristocratic, high nobility system. And those were like water, like fire and water. Also war so irgendwie wie Feuer und Wasser. But they had common grounds, and those had contact because those were recognized, the converted leader's family. And those were recognized because they had personal relationships. Also ich weiß nicht genau, wie das kam, aber sie hatten persönlich Kontakt zwischen dem Stammessystem und dem Aristokratensystem. Till now I could not imagine my mother was working and putting her life to risk and then being one of the members of the nobility system. Also das habe ich bisher nie verstanden. Es ist immer noch schwierig, wie konnte sie dann im Detektiveinsatz ihr eigenes Leben riskieren. But I understand it was maybe an idea of the Frau von Glücksburg, the Kaiserin. Also wahrscheinlich war das eine Idee der Kaiserin, dass sie ihre eigenen Kinder so erziehen wollte. Es war dann auch Erzieher in der Nähe, vielleicht Schulze und Schulze, das ist so keine Comicfigur, die soll es wirklich gegeben haben. Maybe Schulze and Schulzes were nearby to protect the Kaiser's daughter. There was Schulze and Schulze in the comic, I think from Belgium, and those model policemen really existed. Those were circus artist security men. Also Schulze und Schulze, das sind Zirkus-Sicherheitsleute, also die wirklich die Wände hochgehen konnten. Und dann hatten sie auch Kopien, die dann davon gezehrt haben, so ähnlich wie beim Roten Baron. It was nearly the same with the Red Baron, and I don't know how that is, not in the family, I can't say that, but somehow known. Also auch der war irgendwie bekannt, also das persönliche Umfeld jetzt sogar. Aber wie, weiß ich nicht. Because all those old things were rather dangerous. And it really was. Also das war wirklich noch gefährlich, und das war es wirklich. I had printed out this man. And he was from Breslau, and there came a telephone call that he needed help. He was questioned all over again. They were looking for something they could have to accuse him, because he was considered in the Nazi system. I had one visit in his barracks. Also ich war einmal bei ihm in der Baracke, da hatte meine Mutter mich hingeschickt, ich sollte mal sehen, wie der wäre. Ich sollte ihn beurteilen, ob der ehrlich ist. And I don't know, maybe at that age I came and he was saying, ein Kind! Sie schicken mir ein Kind! They're sending me a child. And I said, yes, but it's rather a matter of a thing I can't tell him about. It was about his character, because people thought he was telling idiotic things about his time in Breslau, and maybe this was the same. They did not believe my mother when she was saying in Breslau it was a little bit different. I'm not saying there were no Nazis, it was dangerous, and you took your life at risk if you did something else than wanted. Also man hat schon sein Leben riskiert, wenn man etwas anderes tat als das, was nützlich war. Aber dieser Mann, he was then understanding that he had to understand it was different in other parts, and that was then the best thing I could do. I don't know what I said, but it was about helping by finding arguments. But he was not knowing too much. He was, I can't remember everything, but he was away. The young men had to fight at the front line, so they did not know much about what was happening between 1941 and 45. Those were the evilest times, as I myself have not lived through myself, of course not. This was said to me by those who lived through it. Also die schlimmsten Jahre waren 41, 45, und da war dieser wohl als junger Mann weg. So konnte er auch nichts genau sagen, aber es ging darum, dass er, weil er eben zu wenig zugab, sich wahrscheinlich verdächtig gemacht hatte. Aber ich kann da nicht viel sagen, ich war nur kurz dort. I could bring back the information. He was rather leaning against it. Also er war eher empört und hat sich dagegen gelehnt, dass er irgendwas zugeben sollte, was er nicht kannte. And I can tell that as well about my parents, that those did not know there were plans to destroy the Jewish population. There were plans to push them away. But then, when my father was in the police force, he immediately looked at the maps and he knew how to get them, and he understood something was wrong. Too many people were driving into the camps, but it was not sure why so few came out. Also mein Vater hat die Frachtpapiere angeguckt Und verstand aber auch nicht, it was unthinkable that those were destruction camps. Also es ist undenkbar, das war einfach nicht möglich, das zu glauben. It could well have been there was the pest, the pestilence. Also könnte auch die Pest gewesen sein. And he was not able to surveil it. He had too few men. Also er hatte viel zu wenig Leute, and he was surveilled himself, so he had to do it at night time. And this was it for today. I was saying that I myself was having had a little bit resistance when I was young, and this resistance was to defend not the content of the faith, also das bisschen Widerstand, was ich in der Schule hatte, being between those ages. That was not much resistance. It was a little bit resistance, that it was rather a good thing, for example, to believe in God, and it is rather a good thing to have something that will bring you through hard times. But I can well remember that others could not understand it, and they could not understand the times you were at a total loss. There was desperation, a desperation where you knew this is going in the abyss. Also das haben sie schon verstanden, das geht den Abgrund herunter, das geht in die Hölle. And it rather was for him not possible to do anything. He was rather old. He was very physically relatively fit, very able, but what can one man do? And then he had to understood that he could help his friends, or those his friends would have helped, to find escape routes. And even that was very dangerous, and people helped, but some did it for money, and that was dishonest for both my mother, my father. So I understand now that people did not want to tell much about it, because those who did it for money, that was dishonest before the common faith. There was a Lutheran faith and the Catholic faith, and help for the desperate should have been out of the own ambition. Also der eigene Antrieb müsste die Hilfe für die Schutzlosen aus dem evangelischen Glauben schon von selbst hervorgebracht haben. Und deswegen verstehe ich, dass die nicht gerne darüber geredet haben, but maybe, in addition to that, most lost their lives who had helped. Es kann natürlich auch sein, dass die meisten ihr Leben verloren haben, die geholfen hatten. There had been an arrest, and she was in a concentration camp, and she was not immediately released, but then she came out by high-standing help from the outside, but in between a young man had been shot. Also junge Leute sind erschossen worden, die meine Mutter befreien wollten aus dem Konzentrationslager, and she was there for unknown reasons. But I can not even come to a document that would show me that my remembrance is right. I think there must be some documentation about it. I saw myself a form being filled out. I myself saw a form where she had to fill out about the type of concentration camp, and she was asked for the smell, for the hearing of cries, and how it was all about. And she honestly put in what she had experienced, but maybe she was in a special house inside of the camp. This could well be the case. Also natürlich könnte meine Mutter, ich weiß das nicht, auch in einem besonderen Haus gewesen sein, das anders war wie die anderen. A concentration camp was rather a little village with different zones. Also ein Lager, ein Encampment, also das ist ja, es hieß hieß es Konzentrationslager, weiß ich nicht, eigentlich Internierungslager. That was built like a camp, a big internment camp. And those destructive facilities were later in the open. And she had said that there had been the idea to build such camps in case of mass pestilence. And she had not allowed it in Silesia. And even that must be found out. Maybe she thought the others declined it as well. Also da hatte es sie musste noch in der Regierung gewesen sein, das weiß ich nicht genau. Da muss es eine Anfrage gegeben haben nach Verbrennungseinrichtungen, Pest oder wenn irgendwie ein Massensterben ist. Das hatte sie aber abgelehnt, wegen der Gefahr, dass es missbraucht würde. So I don't understand why this was never brought to us, because she lived by so little money, below 1000 Mark, or around, also ungefähr 1000, das war Witwenrente und ergänzende Sozialhilfe, and I myself am having not even 1000 euros disability payment, and this is rather, in my estimation, not enough to undergo such a private investigation. So I need your help, and this is not because I want to lament, it is because it is necessary, I think, to go into more details and to find out. And here is one possibility. You may stop the video if you can't read it too fast. And there is then, if you have questions, and I'd like to know what I can do differently, you might write me an SMS. I don't have the paper right now. Here it is. This again. This is the knowledge of today. And then there's a possibility, and I'm not quiet, but there was, also war irgendwie Fleck, a mark. So I put a beep on it. Maybe people want me to be quiet, but I'd rather want to speak out. And it should be not to accuse someone, anyone. It is not to be a whistleblower. I have not the idea to be one. Also ich will nicht Geheimnisverräter sein, das ist ja eigentlich Whistleblower. Und, also nein, ist er eigentlich nicht, aber eigentlich schon. Und ich habe auch nicht vor, jemanden zu ärgern. It is because I think there's much misunderstanding going on, and maybe some errors in the system, because I was put in a false box, and I can only come out with your help. Also ich war irgendwie falsch einsortiert worden, hoffentlich nur durch einen Fehler, und ich muss irgendwie rauskommen, und das mit Ihrer Hilfe. So, vielen Dank.